The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Football Show, and here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. We are previewing the AFC West. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. Happy 4th of July and welcome into a special day and time edition of the Sports Stove Football Show. I'm Vince Stover, joined as I am every week by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good on this Independence Day morning, so we're doing good.
That's right. We'll be kicking the grill on here before too long, getting the brats going, and ready for a big day of partying here at the house after a late night partying over at friends' houses as well. So looking forward to it. Today's program is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com and use the promo code STOVE15. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. All right, Dad. Well, we did last week the NFC East. So if you missed that episode, go back and check it out on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel or on the Sports Stove Football Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Today, we are breaking down the AFC West. And over the next several weeks, we'll be breaking down a division each episode in the NFL. We've already done our college football preview. You can go check that out as well on previous episodes. Dad, we're going to kick things off this morning with the Denver Broncos. And each team, we're going to go through a breakout player, a make or break player, someone who really needs this season one to kind of determine their career, depth chart battles, and then we'll talk about win totals and the ceiling and floor for the team as well. So Denver Broncos, we're going to kick things off with the breakout player this year. We think is going to have a breakout year for the Broncos. And Dad, I'll let you go first on this one.
All right, kind of got a couple of them here. One of them would be pass rusher Jonah Elias. Looks like he is in position. Again, Denver's had a good defense, and I think he could excel at that. And they got a cornerback, Riley Moss, who I think is posed to do well also there. So that's the two I'm looking at on Denver. And again, both on their defense, which has been one of their strengths.
Yeah, I'll go the other direction. I'll go on offense on this one. I think it's the rookie, RJ Harvey at running back. I think if you go back and you look at last season at what Bo Nix did in his rookie season, you understand one thing that Sean Payton does is he drafts specifically for what works in his offenses. And Bo Nix worked in his offense, and I think that RJ Harvey will do the same thing. Now, J.K. Dobbins also gets signed recently. He's always had some health issues and some different things. I think he's good. I think he'll get carries and touches. But I think R.J. Harvey's going to have a breakout season as a rookie. I think we're going to look back and go, man, how did he not get picked up earlier? But again, I think some of it's system. I think some of it is just the right fit. And I think R.J. Harvey's going to have a massive year as a rookie this season in Denver. All right, let's go to make or break players. So this is a player that it's kind of in that point of his career where a good year kind of solidifies them for another few years, and a bad year could maybe put them down the depth chart for the rest of their career. So, Dad, do you have a make or break player for Denver?
I do. It's a guy that's been on the team there a couple of years, and I know I've always had my eye on him on fantasy, and he hasn't really excelled yet. And so I think this is a year for Marvin Mims.
Okay.
I think he's going to have to either step up and be, at least their solid number two, or otherwise he may get passed up.
Yeah, 2023 second-round pick. And, he's had some moments for sure. But at some point, if he's going to be the guy opposite of Cortland Sutton, it needs to step up. I like that one, Dad. I'm going to go with a free agent signing this year for Denver, and that's Dre Greenlaw. It sounds weird to say that it's a make or break year for him, but my focus on this is because of his injuries and the expectation. Is he going to have the same outcome as Russell Wilson, which is, good career, great career, even comes into Denver and just doesn't do what's expected. In 2022 and 2023, Greenlaw had 120 plus tackles, but he also only has 3.5 career sacks. Now that's not his forte. It's not what he does. It's not what he's asked to do necessarily either. But you come off this injury now, and for the first time ever, he's making a switch in teams. He's been his whole career in San Francisco. These are the kind of signings that sometimes you see these things, you go, oh man, that's a great pickup for this team. And then it just never pans out. It just never works. And the next thing you know is people are like, Dre Greenlaw, no, he's not that good. You forget how good he's been in the past. So for me, the injuries, the change of scenery, all that kind of stuff makes me say this is a really important year for Dre Greenlaw. He can show back up like he did previously to the injury and have a great year for Denver and be this massive, success there, or he can go the other direction where we've just completely forget about him now, where he's at and things of that nature. So that's where I go with the make or break player this year. Depth chart battles, I'm going to go back to running back for this one, and I think it's more so with J.K. Dobbins and Jaleel McLaughlin for running back 2. I think Harvey will establish himself as RB1. But I think, how many touches? Dobbins obviously has a ton of talent, but cannot stay on the field. And so, if he's healthy, I think he's a clear running back 2, but Jaleel McLaughlin's had some good moments as well. So I think that's kind of the battle that I'm watching. I looked at cornerback as well. Surtain, of course, is established there. They drafted Jahdae Barron, who's expected to be that nickelback for him this year. So you've got Riley Moss that you mentioned as a breakout potential there also. So I looked at that. I think talked about Jonah Ellis as well, Jonathan Cooper. They're going to be battling for snaps. They also drafted a guy at the same position in the 4th round this year, in Quay Robinson. So that's probably a battle to watch also. But for me, the most focused battle that I've got right now is there at running back. Did you have a different depth chart battle?
Well, I know, the running back I think makes sense too. That will be a big one. And again, I talked about Mims. There's a lot of wide receivers. So after Cortland Sutton, there'll be a lot of competition to see if somebody jumps up. Some of them are looking at Franklin having a good year and different ones. So I think your wide receiver will be a little bit of a battle.
Yeah, they didn't invest high on wide receivers, but Pat Bryant was a 3rd-round pick this year. Troy Franklin, a 4th-round pick last year. They bring in Trent Sherfield, who's been around for a while now, just kind of this veteran wide receiver that floats around the different teams and things of that nature as well. So, and then, of course, Devon Vele as well. So there's some guys, but there's not – I don't see any studs back there. Pat Bryant, I think, could be really good, the rookie. But, yeah, that's there's a lot of room for people to earn some playing time there at wide receiver as well. I agree with that. All right, the win total for Denver this year is 9.5. When I look at this team, I see them under 9.5. I got their floor at 7 wins, and I got their ceiling at 9 wins. I don't see them getting to 10 wins at all. So for me, this was an easy under at 9.5. I don't know. Where are you sitting with Denver?
Yeah, I was under 2. Again, I'm thinking Denver's going to have a better year, but when I looked at their schedule, 8 wins is the easiest thing to come up with. I did put their ceiling, I guess, up to 10 and low at 7. They should have a decent year there, but I think they'd be under 9.5.
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's going to be a little drop off this season in Denver. I'm just not as high on Bo Nix year 2. I think he had a great year last year. I don't know. I don't have a confidence level in Denver right now with what they have. So, we'll talk about that more when we get to the end and kind of recap where we think teams will end up in the division. All right, there you go. The Denver Broncos. Let's head to Kansas City next, and we'll go to the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs have had this great run over the last several years. We love Andy Reid. We respect the talent level that is there in Patrick Mahomes as well. Is really intriguing this week on the Belly Up Fantasy Football show that I host. We were talking about fantasy studs and duds, and Patrick Mahomes came up as a dud. And Kevin Wilson gave this take, and he said, I think that the team will still win a bunch of games, and Mahomes will still be able to lead the team well. But fantasy-wise, he thinks there's going to be a drop-off in Patrick Mahomes. And a lot of the players we're going to talk about in this segment are going to be guys that could boost Patrick Mahomes' fantasy value, in my opinion, as well. So let's start with breakout player. I'll go first this time, and I've got Xavier Worthy, the second-year wide receiver, first-round pick last season. Last year, 59 catches, 638 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He was second on the team last year in yards, first on the team in receiving touchdowns last year. But I think I need to see that number go up. I think it needs to be about 80 to 90 catches, close to 1,000 yards, closer to double-digit touchdowns. And I think Xavier Worthy is due for a breakout here in year 2. Just having that camaraderie with Patrick Mahomes, not really a ton of greatly established guys, in the wide receiver room. And so I think it's a big year for Xavier Worthy. I think he breaks out here in year 2. Who's your breakout player for Kansas City?
Yeah, well, Worthy was the first guy I had because, again, I think he will be there. Another guy, and again, he's a rookie, but Josh Simmons at offensive line, because they need him, and he has great potential. There was some injury things there in college, but I think he can be a real difference maker.
Okay, I'm going to come back to him in just a moment. Make or break player for Kansas City, Dad. I've got Hollywood Brown. I go back to this receiver room, and Hollywood Brown, his career best year came in 2021 with Baltimore, and he's regressed every season since. He was injured last year, and there are just buckets of young talent here in the wide receiver room. And Hollywood Brown's at that point now where if he can't succeed and can't establish himself in Kansas City with one of the better quarterbacks in the league, well, then where are you going to go that you're going to do better? So for me, it's a make or break year for Hollywood Brown here in Kansas City. Who's your make or break player for the Chiefs?
Well, it's funny. It's at the same position, but it's a different guy. And that's a draft pick. It just has not produced yet, and that's Sky Moore.
Yeah.
He's a guy they need, or otherwise, he'll be trying to get an opportunity with another team. He's going to have to really step up.
Yeah, I mean, you can just look at this wide receiver room and you say, okay, Xavier Worthy, I think, is the safest bet of them all. Rashee Rice is there, really good player. He's got to stay out of legal trouble. Sky Moore, the second-round pick in 22. Jalen Royals, the fourth-round pick this year, a lot of people are high on. They still have Juju Smith-Schuster there. Justin Ross is still there as well. A couple other guys also. But I look at this group of guys, and it's like, man, there's so much talent. There should be a lot of passing success. But, man, we saw those passing numbers dip last year for the Chiefs. These guys have to step up in order for the Chiefs to be able to get back to where they've been for sure. All right, let's go to depth chart battles, Dad, and I'm going to go right back to that offensive line that you brought up in breakout with Josh Simmons. They also signed Jalen Moore from San Francisco this year at the same position, so those two guys will be battling for left tackle. Simmons, a rookie, first of all, coming off an injury, second of all, and fighting for a position that's very, very crucial on this offensive line. As well. So I think that's the depth chart battle to watch. Jalen Moore versus Josh Simmons. Obviously, I think the Chiefs would love for Josh Simmons to take that job. And I think that he will, if not right away, he will shortly thereafter or find a spot somewhere else on the line. But you got Josh Simmons, a first-round pick this year. At guard, Kingsley Suamataia is a second-round pick of last year. Creed Humphrey at center is a second-round pick in 2021. Trey Smith was a sixth-round pick in 2021, but he has played great at right guard. And then they've got Juwan Taylor, who they brought in from Jacksonville at right tackle as well. So they got some guys that in draft-wise, a lot of capital has been spent over the years. Josh Simmons needs to work out for sure, but I think more of a battle in his rookie season than a breakout, in my opinion. But if he does break out, that'll be a good thing for Kansas City for sure. What depth chart battles do you have?
I think it'd be the running back. Again, they've got they got some good running backs there, but is somebody really going to establish herself? Will they continue to do it by committee? Pacheco's had some good years. Hunt, of course, has produced. Elijah Mitchell. So I think it'll be interesting to see, how they handle the running back position.
Yeah. Bringing in Elijah Mitchell's an interesting one because Pacheco and Hunt have been good even together. So then you bring in Mitchell, who's had success in San Francisco. We'll see how that one shakes out. I like that one too. There's plenty of things to watch as far as rotational players and things like that. On the defensive side of the ball, Mike Pennell and the rookie Omar Norman Lott will be fighting for snaps. And I like Norman Lott a lot, so we'll see how that shakes out. They also bring in Jerry Tillery into that defensive middle defensive line, kind of battles there as well. I think the edges, maybe that the opposite of George Karlaftis could be a little bit of a battle to watch as well. They don't have a standout star necessarily at that position, opposite of Karlaftis. They've got room for guys to make impact, needless to say. Safety, I looked at that one also. Mike Edwards comes over from Tampa. Brian Cook was a 2022 second-round pick at free safety. So will that become a battle? How will that play out as well? Okay, so then you look at the win totals. Kansas City's win total is at 11.5. And just like Denver, I just don't see it, Dad. I've got their floor at 7, which would really surprise me, but it's possible. I've got their ceiling at 10. So I'm under 11.5 with Kansas City this year. How do you feel?
Well, I'm just under 11.5 because, again, when I looked at everything, I came up with about 11 wins there. I'm a little more positive than you are. I have 13 as the ceiling and 10 as the floor there. I just, I'm just not going to bet against Kansas City,
Sure.
Andy Reid and everybody until it really, falls apart or he leaves or whatever. So I don't know that they'll be as dominant. I don't think they will be as dominant as they've been in the past. The AFC is a little more wide open for that.
Yeah.
But again, I think they're going to be a good team. And even though their division is getting a little better, that helps them a little bit.
That's where I come in at. I think the division has gotten a lot better, actually, and that's where it makes it harder for them to get those wins that they've gotten here in the recent years. I agree with you as far as betting against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. That'd be a hard thing to do. I guess I'm just down on them a little bit this year as well. That's the Super Bowl performance puts a sour taste. I mean, they just got dominated in the Super Bowl this year. And I'm not sure they've done enough to fix the problems there. Now everyone is going to say, okay, we have to do this. And have the Chiefs done enough to correct it where people can't do that, I guess, is where I look at it for sure. All right, let's head to Las Vegas next. And the Las Vegas Raiders, a whole new group of people in for the Raiders this year. Pete Carroll comes in as the head coach. Chip Kelly in as the offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham does stick around as the defensive coordinator this year. Breakout players for the Raiders. I would go immediately to the rookie, Dad, Ashton Jeanty, just like I did in Denver. I can't see Jeanty not having a great rookie season right off the bat. And I look at everybody else on the team and I go, I'm not sure there's another breakout player on this team. So I'm going with Ashton Jeanty. Who do you go with as the breakout player for the Raiders?
Well, Jeanty definitely should be good and should make a difference. The other guy I had is offensive lineman Jackson Powers Johnson. He should step up and needs to, and could be a real difference for him there on the offensive line.
All right, yeah, second-round pick last season playing at center. Important role for sure. All right, let's go to make or break player. Who do you have for that?
I have... Let's see, Zion Johnson on the offensive line. I think, their offensive line let's see, I'm sorry. I had the wrong order here of what you had. So I was at the wrong team. Got make or break could be Tim Wilson or Wilson, who's a pass rusher. There from the Raiders, and also Marvin Kuntz, the defensive end. He's coming off an injury. But again, they're going to need to step up with the pass rush there. So that's who I had.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think both of those guys, Wilson and Kuntz, probably battling for the same spot as well. I go Eric Stokes on make or break player. Daddy comes over from Green Bay, drafted high. Injuries have always been an issue. He's never really performed the way in Green Bay like he was expected. He gets a new opportunity in Las Vegas, and I think you look at it here, and if you're Eric Stokes, this is like, it didn't work in Green Bay. You have a very short amount of time to make it work in Las Vegas before, your starting opportunities diminish. They drafted a third-round pick, Darian Porter, who will probably win one job at cornerback. Stokes is supposed to have the other job. They don't have a lot of competition there. Jacorian Bennett, a fourth-round pick in 23, and DeCamerion Richardson, a fourth-round pick in 2024, as your other options there. Eric Stokes has to work, and if he doesn't, the Raiders are in trouble, and I think Stokes' career is in trouble as well. So that's where I go with the make or break player for Las Vegas. The depth chart battles, I stay right there at cornerback. Like I said, there's not anyone who would obviously steal a job, but there's opportunities for guys to win jobs there. So between Porter, Stokes, Bennett, and Richardson that I already mentioned, to me, that's the depth chart battle as well that I'm watching there. I think what you mentioned with guys and Malcolm Kuntz and Tyree Wilson, they'll be battling for snaps there opposite of Max Crosby as well. So that's intriguing to watch. Maybe even at linebacker, they bring in two free agents, Jermaine Pratt and Devin White, who will be fighting for a spot. They also bring in a Landon Roberts from Pittsburgh. So those three guys trying to find spots in the linebacking crew, are intriguing to some degree as well. Do you have any other depth chart ideas or thoughts?
Well, I had the cornerback there, and then also on the offensive line, I think there's at least one spot, a guard spot there, where they got three guys, Perham, Capper, and Meredith, all working to try to get that. So again, there's going to be a lot of battles with the Raiders to see who can establish there and how quick, and be interesting to see how quick Pete Carroll gets that going.
Yeah, I mean, this team is really interesting. I think there'll be a fun, if you're a Raiders fan and you're kind of a football geek, this is going to be a fun year for you, because three rookie wide receivers, Dante Thornton, Jack Beck, Tommy Malo, where are they going to fit in? Do they beat out Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers? Probably not Myers, maybe Trey Tucker. They also signed a guy, Colin Johnson, in free agency. Offensive line, like you mentioned, they drafted a guy in the third round, Caleb Rogers. Then you got the Alex Kappa that came in from Cincinnati. They also have Laki Tassi that came in from San Francisco. Then you got Meredith and Perham. Those are all guards. How is that going to shake out in the grand scheme of things? Geno Smith comes in at quarterback, but they signed Raheem Mostert at running back as well to come in and help out. On the defensive side of the ball, you've got 1, 2, 3, probably 4, if not 5 free agent signings that could be starting for you. Lonnie Johnson Jr. comes in at safety, but Jeremy Chin should beat him out. There are a lot of changes this offseason when it comes to the Raiders. And then let's talk about Tommy Malo real quick, a quarterback in college, drafted as a wide receiver, crazy athletic, could be a kick returner or punt returner, gonna be a wide receiver. So that's going to be fun too. There's a lot of fun storylines this year with the Raiders. Dad, their win total is at 6.5, and I kind of like that number. I think 6, 7. I think that makes sense. I've got their floor at 5 wins, their ceiling at 8 wins for season number 1 with Pete Carroll. I think they need more when it comes to the wide receiver room. Obviously, the tight end room is great. Brock Bowers, we haven't even mentioned him. Brock Bowers is phenomenal and great there at the tight end position, and they've got depth there as well with Michael Myers. So there's still, though, just not quite enough pieces in place, in my opinion. So I've got them between 5 and 8 wins. I probably have them going either at 6 or 7, over 6. I'd take over 6.5 though for the Raiders.
Yeah, I have them at 6 wins, so I'd be just under 6.5, and I had their ceiling at 7 and their floor at 4. Even though I think they're a team that could overachieve and could upset some, they'll have to do it in the division. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing when you look at these schedules, is going, okay, how are these division games going to break out? Are they going to split? All that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was the hard one for sure in this division. All right, let's go to the Chargers now to wrap up the AFC West. Jim Harbaugh, of course, the head coach, Greg Roman at OC, and Jesse Minter at DC. Let's start with breakout player, Dad, for the Chargers. Who do you have as the breakout player for the Chargers?
Well, I have two of them. One of them is a rusher, and I don't know that I can pronounce his name, but it's Tuli.
Tui Pulotu.
And so they're really high on him, and that could be a breakout player. Also, they have a nickelback, Tarheed Still, who they're very high on. So those are two guys I'm probably watching.
Yeah, if those guys break out, it's going to be a good year for the Chargers. Needed positions for sure. Tui Pulotu, I'm high on him as well. I like that one. I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. And I think when you look at his stats, you would say, well, what's a breakout year for him? Right? So his best season was in 2021, where he threw for over 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, and 15 picks. Last season, he threw the ball a lot less than he has previously. He had 3,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. That's a pretty solid year. But I think this year's the breakout year for him. I think he'll be back over 4,000 yards, over 30 touchdowns, and under 10 interceptions. So I've got it 4,000 yards, 32 touchdowns, 7 picks. I think they win the division this year. He hasn't had a 4,000-plus yard season in over 2 years. So, and he hasn't had a 30-plus touchdown season in 3 years. So I look at this as the year where finally Justin Herbert is what we all thought he would be. What he showed early on in his career he could be, but he didn't have the team around him to have the team success. I think this year's where that changes. So I think Herbert established himself as one of the top quarterbacks in the league, in that top, we'll call it top 8 quarterbacks in the league. He may already be there talent-wise, but he hasn't been there production-wise. And so that's where I put Herbert as the breakout player this year. I think this is the year he gets noticed because there's a lot of quarterbacks in the AFC, and it's hard to notice some guys. You've got the Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, and how do you rise up there and be put into that category? I think Herbert this season puts himself in that category. So he's my breakout player this year. Make or break players. Do you have a make or break player for the Chargers?
Well, now I've got Zion Johnson. I've got on the right team here, but offensive line, I think he's one that needs to produce. And another one might be surprising, but I think it's Najee Harris. We'll see exactly, he had a good year last year. So is he going to continue to? Of course, they've got, a great running back they drafted.
Yeah.
Is Najee Harris going to be part of the committee there, or is he going to, be the number one guy, or, will he be shuffled to another team? So interested to see how Najee Harris does there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think Harris is a good one because of that, what you just said. It's like we both liked the signing when it happened. Then they drafted Marion Hampton, and you're like, okay, I'm not sure how this works well for Najee Harris as far as being a starting running back. It doesn't seem like it bodes well for him. What can he do this year to maybe get an opportunity somewhere else as a starter again? Or maybe he fits in well with Hampton and it's a great 1-2 punch, and that's the rest of his career. It's not the end of the world, obviously. That's a good one. I'll go back to Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver. He did improve last season. In his rookie year, massively disappointing, 38 catches, 431 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Last year, 55 catches, 711 yards, and 8 touchdowns, which is very good as far as improvement for sure. But he was a first-round draft pick. And if you're a first-round draft pick at wide receiver, you got to be better than that. And so for me, this is kind of the year they drafted Trey Harris in the 2nd round. They also got Keandre Lambert-Smith in the 5th round. They bring back Mike Williams in free agency. And then Ladd McConkey, of course, was their leading receiver last year. So to me, this is a make or break year for Quentin Johnson. Is he going to be an established, number 2 even, or is he going to start to get pushed down that depth chart a bit there for the Chargers and eventually maybe find himself on another team? I think you can find guys like this. Jalen Reagor is like another example of this kind of thing where still around, still playing, but never lived up to that full expectation. And Quentin Johnston is about to that point as well. So big season ahead for him, make or break year for him for sure. Depth chart battles, Dad. Who do you have for that for the Chargers?
Well, I looked at it, and probably the best one will be for the backup quarterback spot. Tyler Heineke, who has been a solid backup for teams. And then the guy who you've always liked, Trey Lance, has just never found a spot. So is he going to, will he find a spot here with Jim Harbaugh? Can he be a number 2 guy and get a chance, to get looked at? Or so kind of interesting with the number 2 quarterback.
Well, let me clarify that statement, who I've always liked. I don't know that I would say I always liked him, but I always felt like, why not give him the opportunity? He was drafted where he was drafted, so let's give him the chance. Like, I know that that practice matters, and maybe he hasn't won that opportunity, but at some point, I mean, last year in Dallas, there was no reason why he shouldn't have had the opportunity after Dak Prescott went down. The season was not winnable for Dallas after a certain point. Why not put him in there and give him a legit opportunity? They never did. San Francisco never really did. So, he's not going to get the opportunity, obviously, unless Herbert gets injured and he wins out over Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke is a backup quarterback. That's his career. That's all he's going to be. And Trey Lance probably the same way, but still, Taylor Heineke at least had the opportunity in Atlanta. He had the opportunity, maybe even in Washington. I forget. He's somewhere else. Yeah. And so why not give Trey Lance a chance? You know what Taylor Heineke is. So why not give Trey Lance a chance? I don't get it. That's my only thought there. I don't know what he is. So I'm not all for him necessarily, but a lot of people had him as a first-round draft pick. So why not give him a legit opportunity? But Herbert's the quarterback. So, yeah, backup quarterback position there. I'm going to go tight end, Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin. Conklin comes in this year, Dissly last year. I don't really like either of these guys as tight end 1, but one of them has to win the job. They did draft a tight end, Oronde Gadsden, in the 5th round this year as well, and he may actually end up being the guy that wins it all out when it's all said and done. But to start the season, I think we'll see either Dissly or Conklin at the starting tight end position. I really wanted them the last 2 years to draft a tight end, Dad. I wanted them to go Brock Bowers last year. They went Joe Alt, and that's probably the wise move as far as protecting your quarterback goes. But, I mean, you throw Brock Bowers with Justin Herbert, it's a whole different story. Yeah. And this year, same thing. There were so many good tight ends in the draft this year, and I really wanted them to go there. They went O'Marion Hampton, which I don't think is a bad pick. They went Trey Harris in the 2nd round. I think they could have gotten better value at tight end and maybe even gotten Trey Harris later. But that's the way I think, take it or leave it, I suppose. And they chose to leave it. So there's that. Win total is at 9.5, Dad. And I looked through this schedule, and this is the team that I saw as the potential breakout team in the West. I've got their floor at 9. I've got their ceiling at 13 this season. And you are a notorious Jim Harbaugh hater. How do you feel about the Los Angeles Chargers?
Well, at 9.5, I had them at 9 wins. So I'll go just under 9.5. I have their ceiling at 11 and their floor at 7.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we will see there. But again, they easily could do better. Again, yeah, I'm not a Harbaugh fan. I'm trying not to let that, shade me too much here on this. He has the quarterback, no doubt about it, or potentially with Justin Herbert. So they should be able to make a move. Exactly where they're at, I just, 13 wins. I just don't know. I don't see, even with Justin Herbert, I don't know that I can see them, in the next 2 or 3 years being in the AFC Championship game. Maybe so. Maybe Jim Harbaugh, can do that, like he did at Michigan. Of course, Michigan, he didn't do it by the rules, but there's not the same rules in the NFL. So we will see. But, the Chargers should be better, no doubt about it. And I think I am doing more of enjoying watching them.
Well, like he did at Stanford, like he did at San Francisco, like he did at Michigan. He just has a track record. And whether or not he cheats or not, that's a whole nother conversation. But the reality is everywhere he's been, Even at San Diego State, he had success. So everywhere he's been, he's built it better. How long will it last? That's another conversation too. But to get there, I just think it has to happen at some point. And this is a tough division. I think this division is better. I think Denver is better. I think Kansas City, maybe not better than they were last year, but I think they're still really good. I think Vegas is going to get better as well. And I think the Chargers are going to get better too. So let's break down the division now. We've talked through these teams. How do you think the division breaks out when the year is all said and done at the end of the regular season? Who wins it? Who's second, third, and fourth in the AFC West?
Well, I think Kansas City will still they're the favorite at this point, no doubt about it. I would have the Chargers second, and I think there's a chance that they could be in the playoffs. Then Denver again. I think Denver will be improved, but when I looked at their schedule, we will see. Like you said, this division's a little tougher, and then I had Vegas at the bottom. One thing real interesting about the Chargers is I looked at their schedule. Their first 3 games are all division games, and that's kind of that's either a good thing or a bad thing
right.
From there. I mean, if they go 3-0 or whatever, and the first one is overseas, if I remember right, they're in Sao Paulo, aren't they, on that one, I believe, and so. But again, they still have 3 division games, so that kind of sets the tone going into the rest of the year.
Right. Yeah, I think, you're right. Chargers and Chiefs in Sao Paulo, Friday, September the 5th, 7 o'clock kickoff there. The Chiefs currently a 2.5-point favorite in that one. I look at it. I go Chargers first in the division. I think that this is the year they supplant Kansas City. So I've got Chargers at 1, KC at 2, Denver at 3, and Vegas at 4 in the division. I think Denver, I'm a little bit more down on Denver. Not that they're going to be bad. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to win the games they won last year. And so I'll go them at 3rd and out of the playoffs. I don't think they go back to the playoffs either. Vegas is maybe another year away before they're legit contenders in the division, if that even. I'm not a Geno Smith guy. Like, I think Geno Smith is fine. He's an NFL quarterback, an NFL starting quarterback, but I don't think he's the guy that's going to lift you over the top there. So, we'll see how that shakes down as well. But yeah, to me, this is the Chargers year. Like, I'm all in on Los Angeles. A Justin Herbert injury would change that, obviously, but you take out any starting quarterback and that changes everything anyhow. But I just think this is the year for the Chargers to take the leap here in the AFC West. That doesn't mean I'm saying they're Super Bowl champions or anything like that. They're not there yet, but I think they win the West, and I think we have a big year for Justin Herbert this year. I think Omarion Hampton was a great draft pick, by the way. I think he's going to have a monster year as well. So that's where I sit with it, and we'll see how it all shakes down. Dad, not a whole lot of other news on the Belly Up Fantasy Live football show. We discussed the trades between the Steelers and the Jaguars, and we also talked about Waller coming out of retirement and headed to Miami. So if you want to hear that conversation, you can go check that out on the Belly Up Fantasy Live football show on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel or the Belly Up Fantasy Live football podcast. Dad, any thoughts you wanted to throw in on that Steelers-Dolphins trade or on the Darren Waller coming out of retirement?
No, like I said, I listened to the fantasy football show. I thought you guys covered that real well. We'll see on Waller, how he bounces back. Could be a good thing or could be a stretch there. I think Jonnu moving, I think that'll be, interesting from there. So, the Steelers, that's a whole different subject this year anyhow. So, we'll see where that goes, and we'll see how the Dolphins do. So that trade, may have helped one or both of them. We'll see.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the Steelers in detail, obviously, when we get to the AFC North, and we'll cover all of that. I got lots of opinions on that one for sure. Dad, your governor approved funds for the Browns' new stadium as well this week. So the Browns are going to start building an indoor stadium, a dome, for lack of a better term. So that's going to change. I'm interested to see the stadium drawings look phenomenal, of course. I don't know. When I think of Cleveland Browns, I don't think of dome. And so I don't know. Any thoughts on that? I don't know if you read up on that or knew anything about that.
Well, a little bit, and I saw some articles this past week about how many open air stadiums there are and how many there will be. A lot of it was Packer related because the thinking is that Lambeau will always be open air and should be, but more and more are going to the dome stadium. As for a lot of reasons, I think it adds entertainment value for the city. They can attract more things. Yeah, I would have to admit, if you would have said who would be one of the last teams to have a dome, I think Cleveland. You think of the dog pound, you just don't think of you think of the dog pound, not the indoor kennel. So we will see from there. But anyhow, so that's been a surprise, but that's been in the works. The Bears going to an indoor facility. That one's a little interesting. That seems a little interesting too. You think back on it. Did Minnesota make a mistake? But again, weather is really tough up there, and they have a great facility now there also. So, and the Lions, they got cold and went indoors years and years ago. So anyhow.
Well, it's about Super Bowls, right? It's about, can I host a Super Bowl? The only chance for Cleveland, for Minnesota, Chicago to host a Super Bowl, it's as if they got an indoor stadium. And so that's where it comes down to ultimately. We've always known the Bears are soft. I mean, that's not a surprise that they're finally building a roof. Not surprising at all. But Green Bay and Cleveland would be my final two. Like, those would be the last two I'd have standing as far as cold weather teams building domes. And but again, the drawings look amazing. Ultimately, it does provide a better fan experience if you're not freezing your tail off. But there's something about, I tell people all the time, my Lambeau experience, it was snowing. It was around Christmas time. It was cold. And that's the only way I would have wanted it, back then, especially. Now I'm older and I've been there in the cold, so I'm okay to go in a warmer day. But back then, that's a true Lambeau experience. So there you go. Maybe one of these pet places will get the naming rights here, and it can be called the Kennel. I like that a lot. Yep. All right, college football. There's plenty of stuff happening. We haven't really prepared for college football to talk this episode, but Texas State does get invited to the Pac-12, Dad. I mean, why does the Pac-12 even exist, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, well, it exists because the structure has allowed for them to continue to be a conference and get a spot in the playoffs. But the team, I looked at that when that came up a week or so ago, and I thought, man, this is really kind of interesting there. But when Washington State and Oregon State, stayed in for them to survive, if they're not going to move somewhere else, there wasn't any choice. But as far as are we going to someday look at that, as a Power 5 conference and start looking at that, that'll be, it's a little hard to do with the teams that are in there.
Yeah, well, it's not even considered a Power 5 conference now. There's now Power 4 conferences. Pac-12 will never be a part of that, I don't think. Their current members: Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Oregon State, San Diego State, Texas State, Utah State, and Washington State. Let's just call it the Pac State. They're all state teams. So, and Gonzaga, by the way, is in non-football. So, I mean, it's just crazy. Football realignment in college football continues to be kind of somewhat of a joke, I think. We'll see how it shakes all out, though. For the Pac-12, at least they got teams back in there last year. The 2-team Pac-12 was not that exciting. So we'll see how all that shakes out. Congrats, by the way, to Texas State. That's big for them at the very least. So congrats to them. All right, Dad, anything else you want to cover in this episode?
No, I don't think so. Again, like you said, college football, I think there'll continue to be movement in that, and see if they can get that straightened out. I know one thing they've always talked about is getting someone to head that up, and then Nick Saban has always been the name that's come up there. And that was interesting because I saw Nick Saban's name come up and saw a picture of him this week. He was a visitor at to talk to the coaches and the players about leadership at the Predators, of all things. Apparently, he's a Nashville Predator fan, and as they were having their rookie camp, they had Nick Saban, and of course, Barry Trotz said Nick Saban's welcome anytime he would like to be as being a Predator fan. But, it's been interesting for him. But, yeah, I think he's a guy that has to be involved in college football if they're going to get this straightened out.
All right. Very good. Very good. Other content you can tune into this week, Sunday night. Myself and Kevin Wilson will be back to talk fantasy baseball on the Belly Up Fantasy Live Baseball Show. Tuesday night, we're talking fantasy football on the Belly Up Fantasy Live Football Show. That's with also myself, Kevin Wilson, and Brian Germanaro. And then next week, we'll be back to talk more football here on the Sports Show Football Show. We'll be breaking down the NFC North next week, talking about those soft bears. We'll talk about them next week. Follow us on social media at Sports Stove. That's on Twitter and Instagram. And make sure you check out righteousfelon.com. Check out your new favorite flavor of jerky and use the promo code STOVE15. That'll get you 15% off your purchase, STOVE15 for 15% off your purchase at righteousfelon.com. Thank you for tuning into this edition of the Sports Stove Football Show on this special 4th of July. Don't blow your fingers off tonight, friends. Have a great, great day. And until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.